And we are back. So, Hayu, guess what? We have another one of those games where
Mm.
somebody's gonna make punch their ticket, I guess, to the top eight, and somebody else gonna be watching from the sidelines. And I don't know. This is gonna be a difficult one because these are two decks we didn't see a whole lot of this weekend, but are really interesting. So we're gonna have Quintorius combo against Arclight Phoenix, and I know you're a fan of the Phoenix.
I am.
Yeah, this should be a lot of fun for everybody getting to see this matchup because, well, one, it's not vampires. So, like you get to see something different here. And this is a win and in match for these players. So, yeah, you've got Christian Greciano against Toni Ramis Pascual. And we got to see him earlier as well on camera. Like, these decks kind of match up pretty interestingly. So, how do you expect this matchup to go, Hayu?
It definitely is very interesting. Izzet Phoenix, of course, we've seen what it can do, super powerful, gets through its deck very quickly, puts a lot of Phoenix on the battlefield. And I think getting that early aggression going will be very nice for the Phoenix player because the Quintorius combo deck needs turns to set up. It needs to cast Fertile Footsteps or Channel Tanuki to even really ramp into the mana that it needs for the later game. But once it gets there, it can be a little bit tough for Phoenix to deal with. In the main board, I think these lists are only really running a couple of spell pierces, which is fine if you're countering Quintorius, but not fine if you're countering the Carnosaur. Plus, of course, Cavern of Souls a factor there as well. So the disruption suite from Phoenix, at least in the main board, is not looking like it matches up very well. And there's also not really very many ways for Phoenix to kill a Quintorius at instant speed, which is another way of disrupting that combo.
Yeah, and looking at the Quintorius combo deck here, it looks like really you only have what looks to be, I guess, 8 points of interaction here, where you're talking about the Carnosaur that you can pitch or using the ley line. So this could leave some kind of different lanes open to get those early Phoenixes in and get the damage done.
Right. I think these two decks, I mean, they both came here to play against vampires. The matchup between them really comes down to the draw and to like which exact pieces of interaction both players find. So I think we'll just have to find out with the players how it goes.
Yeah, this is kind of one of those unfortunate situations that I think anybody who's gone to a bunch of tournaments has had where you are targeting a deck, and unfortunately, in the round that matters, you don't get to play against that deck. You're playing against something else that was also targeting the same decks you were.
All right, this is such a crucial moment. 5 and 3, both players really vying for that top 8 slot. And Greciano has a really nice draw here. The Tanuki into Quintorius is nice. You don't want to draw your spark doubles, you want to discover into them. But drawing one is not the end of the world. Things can get a little bit awkward if you draw more than one of that effect.
Yeah, and Pasquale kept a one lander knowing you could dig and get the option of drawing an extra card, did find a second land, and also found a spell piercer, looks like. So that's going to help a lot here.
All right. I mean, Spell Pierce is going to be great if Graciana goes for the turn 4. I guess it will be a Quintorius. Though I think that is a Jetmir's Garden that was drawn. So even if Tanuki cycles channels rather to get a land, Graciano would still need to find an untapped source even to threaten the combo next turn.
Yeah, definitely. So would need effectively search for a land, untap land. And this does kind of put Pasquale in a little bit of a situation here, only having one extra mana to work with here. So you kind of have to leave up the spell pierce so nothing terrible happens to you.
Right, and this is one of those spots where Phoenix, it's very good at finding the land. You can keep the one landers; it's not really that much of a problem. But I think here for Toni, the extra value of getting the Phoenix into the graveyard was tempting enough that he would risk not finding that land there.
Yep, and got there anyway. Like found the other land, still has spell pierce up, managed to get the Phoenix into the graveyard. So right now everything's clicking for Toni.
For sure. And Spell Pierce can't do anything about this Tanuki being channeled, but it certainly can do something about Quintorius. And even if Graciano finds a Cavern of Souls, that does not help you or help protect your Quintorius at all.
Yeah, also unfortunate, drew one of his, we'll call it combo pieces, being one of the cards that copies Quintorius. You'd rather have those in the library when you start comboing.
right? And that's it. It just is awkward, right? Like the problem with this deck is you need to have not only the pieces, but you need to also not draw some pieces, and the pieces that you draw need to be, once you start comboing, you need to combo in the right order. So it really is a lot of RNG in this Quintorius deck.
Yeah, this is an interesting situation too. Just playing a blocker effectively, seeing how much mana you can get Toni to spend here. And then I think Christian's hoping maybe I'll get to resolve this Quintorius next turn.
Right. And it it could go that way, right? Toni has spent 2 mana on the Picklock Prankster. I believe he's already made a land drop this turn. So Prankster getting Treasure Cruise, that's very sweet, very nice. But I don't think Toni can actually play the 3 spells that are necessary to get the Phoenix out of the graveyard unless he taps out and leaves the shields down for Quintorius.
Yeah, so this is just going to come to how badly does he want the Phoenix in play versus leaving up defense for the Quintorius.
Right, and both players get to connive. So, for Greciano, copying that Ledger Shredder was a pretty heads-up move.
Yeah, it does give you some extra value, especially when you know your opponent's going to want to play multiple spells in a turn. It's what they're built for. All right, let's see if we go for it or not. Well, actually, we don't even have anything to play for 1 mana, actually.
Ah, right. That sleight of hand was pitched already. So Toni very much says, I have 2 copies of Spell Pierce and I refuse to die with these in my hand.
Yeah, that would be the heartbreaking thing when you knew you had a way to break it up and you would have spent those.
We've all been there.
Yeah, the other thing too that I could have possibly helped Greciano here would have been to draw another land and just deploy the Carnosaur straight up.
Right. The Carnosaur plays around Spell Pierce very nicely, and it is open deckless. Your opponent doesn't really have anything that can answer the Carnosaur for 1 mana. There is a copy of Jawari Disruption that could counter it with that Force Spike type effect for 2 mana. But ultimately, Greciano, I think, really is just trying to buy time, sit back on the Ledger Shredder, not take any damage, and get to a place where, he can stop worrying about effects like Spell Pierce or Jawari Disruption by simply having enough mana to pay for it.
Yeah, I think here he might just be debating, like, do I want a second creature in play? Do I maybe, just go ahead and buy my companion? I mean, like, it's just kind of passed on all options, it looks like, leaving up Carnosaur.
There are not that many targets for Lightning Axe in this matchup, but it turns out Toni found one.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this is a reasonable thing to hit with it and could give you a chance. Let's see. We can play 1. Actually, again, really can't get the Phoenix out of the yard here. I was looking to see what we could play, but I think we're going to be a little choked on mana here.
Well, there is an untapped land for Toni to play, so he could do something like Lightning Axe, play the land, use Picklock Prankster, mill a bunch of cards, and then hope to have enough for Treasure Cruise for 1, and that would still leave him with 1 mana remaining for a Spell Pierce. So that is really the ideal place you want to be with this deck.
Yep, we're going to discard another Shredder. Oh, there you go. Found a sleight of hand. Perfect. Always had it.
And the sleight of hand finds another sleight of hand. That is what these cantrips do best, Daquan. Find more cantrips.
Yep, just keep the fuel machine pumping. All right, opted not to use the Carnosaur there to send the Phoenix back to the yard.
No, I think it's time to Carnosaur and pray, but drawing the second Quintorius is also not ideal. When you have a Carnosaur, you really want to hit Quintorius before you hit a copy effect, but Christian's managed to do that.
This is actually, in a way, kind of ideal here,
but it is a cost.
Yeah, but you do get the Spell Pierce out of hand, so if you do find an untapped land, the other Quintorius is likely to resolve here.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, for Christian, He doesn't know that Toni has that second Spell Pierce in hand. Even if he finds an untapped, even if so, finding an untapped land would be fine in terms of helping it resolve. And also, I mean, he has the third Quintorius anyway.
Yeah, also, let's see if we can get this other Phoenix into the yard this turn. We did find another Lightning Axe, so you could force the Phoenix into the graveyard.
Definitely could consider, well, at least that you'd put it there with the Shredder as well. But I think getting the Carnosaur off the battlefield, it's not nothing, right? Like, there's not a lot of places for these removal spells to go in this matchup.
Yeah, and you would be attacking for 5, 6, so 11.
Wow, look at that Jawari disruption drawn though for Toni. So even if Christian finds the untapped land and goes for it, there's some world in which Toni could have said, okay, I'll spell pierce, you pay for it, and then I'll Jawari disruption for Xaxes, but we'll see what happens.
All right, here we go. I mean, I imagine we're not saving to block. We're getting in there.
This is so close to lethal.
9 is 14. So only attacking with 9, it looks like, and gonna leave back the Shredder. Okay, now the Shredder looks like it's getting in there. All right.
Yeah,
so 14.
may as well get your opponent to 1.
All right, so I don't even know if Greciano knows it, but this is, does he draw an untapped land here, and did not.
Oh. That is one of the worst draws.
Yeah, if it had been an untapped land, I think this could have still been a game and probably even a win for Greciano. But being anything but, I don't know if he's got any outs here.
Well, he could use the Impersonator to copy the Carnosaur. That would play around Spell Pierce, and it would do, it would start the combo again. But because he went for the Quintorius, that is going to be a lights out.
You're right. There is a situation there where he could have just started to chain Carnosaurs. That's the other option.
Yeah, this deck is interesting. It has a few different plan Bs. There's the oops all Carnosaurs. There's oops all Gyrudas. I've seen oops all Karugas happening in some of them. So there are definitely ways that they can win without the combo, but they would like to find, of course, the Quintorius.
Yeah, that kind of worked ideal for Toni, the way that played out. Like, got the early spell pierces, so you never had to worry about getting comboed. You kind of had all the bases covered and found 3 early Phoenixes that let you just get the damage done. So kind of, again, an ideal situation for him in that game 1.
Yeah, for sure. And it gets better for him after sideboard as well. He can bring in a copy of Negate, a nice hard counter to Quintorius, and a copy of Aether Gust, which is a way to set the Carnosaur back as well. So a little bit more kind of tailored disruption in the sideboard there for Toni Ramis Pascual. And for Greciano, looking at the sideboard, there's 4 copies of Thought Distortion. That's the main weapon here for him.
Yeah, and one of the things that is the unfortunate part about playing the Quintorius combo is that you're limited on what cards you can play, right? Because you don't want things that you're going to hit on those discovers. So you're kind of looking for high cost things that do what you want them to do without disrupting your combo if you accidentally hit those.
Right. And, we've seen them play these split cards. We saw Consecrate Consume come in for the Vampires matchup. The consume side is the one that's relevant in that one, but we may see Consecrate come in here as well, given that it has this exile target card from a graveyard ability on the front side. So could potentially, stop a Phoenix or several Phoenixes from coming in. But it looks like Greciano went with a very light sideboard plan and just brought in the 1 copy of Consecrate Consume.
Wow, look at this hand from Greciano. 5 tri-lands, and he says, you know what? I'm good with this. It's all the mana I need. Let's do it.
Yeah, and that's one of the problems with this deck. There are just so many tap lands because they're playing Leyline Binding. They're playing this kind of 4 or 5 color strategy. The only way to really do that in Explorer/Pioneer is to play a lot of these triomes. And you're going to get these games where you have 5 tap lands in the first 5 turns of the game.
All right, we are going to go ahead and ley line this shredder here early, which makes sense because it's a lot of way to filter cards, put stuff in the graveyard. So you kind of take away that tool while you're trying to set up here. And then it looks like this turn we're just going to be using a Tanuki to go search for some lands.
Yeah, at least that one can't be counted.
Yeah, for sure. And to be fair, we do have a couple of pieces of interaction in Tony's hands here because you're looking at you can make the opponent pay 1. We can also have an Aether Gust here. So several things to break up the combo, and a Brazen Bar actually, I guess, that you can actually bounce something. So a few things we could interrupt different options that Greciano might have.
Right, Tony is definitely very well prepared if Christian decides to go for it this turn, or if he had the Quintorius. We would, of course, know that he doesn't have the Quintorius, and it's going to be a tap land and try and wait for the Trumpeting Connoisseur next turn. But Tony really has the only card that deals with that in the form of Aether Gust, at least through something like a Cavern of Souls, though I think Greciano doesn't have one of those just yet, so Jawari Disruption might come in handy.
That feels a little bit like a sign of strength to me too, where your opponent says, "Yep, here, just Brazen Bar is just going to fight." Like I'm not even using it to bounce anything. I got other stuff to do.
Right, I was really thinking Tony was gonna end step, bounce the ley line by. I don't know. There was some sequence of those, but I love this from Tony. Get the aggression down. He knows that there's a timer on these effects. You know, the Jawari Disruption definitely doesn't do anything later on. Aether Gust is just one thing, and so he's saying I need to get Christian dead, and I need to do it quickly.
Yeah, also very patient there from Greciano, opting to not run anything in. Again, knowing your opponent has some stuff that can make you pay 1 or 2 mana. Says, I'll just wait. I'll try next turn.
All right, there's the cycle. Wow. I mean, at least that is the benefit of having all these tap lands.
True. I mean, it's just going to help you. Once you're set, you just start pitching them to find other huge bodies that you know you can cast. And then there's a decision here on just which creature do you want to try to go with.
Right. There is a plan, I don't know, D, E, F of the Tanuki beats in this deck, which it's happened before. I'm pretty sure a non-zero number of games have been won by that. And Greciano made me thinking, okay, I'm at 12, you have a 3 power creature. Who's winning this race if I just play a Tanuki?
Yeah, that's it. And I think he's debating here too. Like, was there a situation where you wanted to play the forest untapped, try to resolve one of your 6 mana spells, but also being able to use Carnosaur here, you can just kill the Brazen Bar, so you can kind of stop the clock for a second.
Right, it's pretty tough prospect to face, you know, losing a combo piece, but if Greciano was worried about that for sure, that is something that he would be thinking about. Ledger Shredder is also a very juicy target here.
Oh, for sure. All right, we're going to go looking for yet another land with the Tanuki here.
One of my favorite cards from Neon Dynasty draft, one of my favorite formats.
All right, so we're not prioritizing killing anything here. We're just getting more cards, more options.
Well, the second Carnosaur is a good draw here for Greciano, and that leaves him open to using the first Carnosaur to kill something and then kind of following up with that second one. And I kind of like this too. Maybe just playing out the Carnosaur. Aether Gust is an answer for now, but Tony doesn't have enough on board to kill Christian through the second Carnosaur being channeled.
Yeah, this is interesting because if you target it, assuming it's going on top of the library, and you can still use the other Carnosaur to pick off one of these creatures.
Oh, but look at this. Tony
Nice.
recognizes the danger. If Christian pays the 1 here, I mean, that's going to be it. The Hall of Storm Giants very likely to take it home.
Yeah, very smart.
Wow, extremely heads up play that from Tony.
Yeah, that put Toni in a rough spot. If you let that resolve, then you almost are forced into using your other Carnosaur to kill something anyway.
Right. And luckily for Christian, there was no untapped land, so Hall of Storm Giants was not able uh, to get animated. But Arclight Phoenix off the top, I think, is going to do it. Ledger Shredder gets another counter from the Connive, plus bringing it back from the graveyard thanks to Treasure Cruise. And yeah, there you see it.
Yeah, that was a strong play there from Toni. Like, just realizing that, hey, if we get them to tap down, then if they pay, we can still use the Aether Gust. And then now none of your cards are under threat because you know everything your opponent plays.
Yeah, may as well Treasure Cruise anyway. Who doesn't love drawing some more cards? Could have played that Arclight Phoenix just for the haze buddy, but there we go. Wow. You can see why this player was his national champion, Spanish national champion, because there's some high-level stuff here from Toni.
Yeah, that just was so well played. Never really was at risk during that game. You know, it's a combo-ish decks against each other, but never was at risk at losing that. Like, played it perfectly and even had a good play there at the end that I don't know if every player would have necessarily seen, but worked out just in a way that you really couldn't lose from there. It's super well done.
Yeah. Have blue in them.
All right, and it looks like we found an Arclight Phoenix just for bonus here, I guess, in case there is actually another ley line. Getting in there, that is going to get it done. And Toni Pascual is our winner of Arena Championship 5. Wow.
Wow. Wow. What an incredible match there played by Toni Pascual. Incredible series of 3 matches really played by both players. But Daquan, I admire him so much. The patience, you know, the ability to just always hold back, always have something up to protect.